the visionaries of tomorrow.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
Good morning, you're watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. I'm Karthik Malhotra, and on the show today, the big story that we continue to track every morning. Donald Trump issues 8 more letters on countries on tariff list, but India doesn't find a mention on that list of 8 as well. Now, this mini deal that India and US are working on has a big suspense which is refusing to end. How long before we snatch that deal? Well, also on the show, we will talk about Nvidia's valuation. At $4 trillion, Nvidia's market cap is almost equal to India's GDP. How real is the AI momentum which is driving this boom in Nvidia stock? And finally on the show, with this tariff uncertainty, but some clarity on copper tariffs of 50% starting August 1st, markets continue to remain on the edge. We'll unpack all that for you on the show. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. Watching Morning Brief at 9. First up, let's bring you all the headlines that we're tracking for you this morning. US President Donald Trump targets 8 nations including Brazil, South Africa and Sri Lanka with steep new tariffs up to 50% on Brazil, warns of retaliation and sets August 1st as the deadline for trade deals. India is not on the list of nations receiving Trump's latest tariff letters, offering temporary relief as trade talks with US continue ahead of the August 1st deadline. Meanwhile, Donald Trump announces 50% tariff on copper imports starting August 1st this year, citing national security. India to roll out UPI in Namibia later this year as Prime Minister Modi and President Nandi Ndaitwah strengthen bilateral ties with pacts on health, entrepreneurship and digital cooperation. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal urges resilient fertilizer supply chains as China cuts key exports, prompting India to explore alternatives and boost domestic production to protect agriculture. Viceroy Research accuses Vedanta Group of financial misconduct and governance lapses ahead of AGM. Vedanta denies allegations, calls report malicious and ill-timed as shares tumble on the Bombay Stock Exchange. Elon Musk's Starlink secures final regulatory approval from InSpace to launch satellite internet services in India. Joins Geo, SES and Eutelsat OneWeb. Nvidia hits $4 trillion in market capitalization after stock achieves fresh all-time high, beats Apple and Microsoft. And Riyadh Group apologizes for spreading incorrect information on UAE Golden Visa scheme, denies offering lifetime residency for 23 lakh rupees as UAE authorities dismiss misleading reports and clarify visa rules. In a fresh wave of new tariffs, US President Donald Trump has sent letters to 8 trading partners, including Brazil, Philippines, Brunei, Moldova, Algeria, Libya, Iraq and Sri Lanka, announcing new import taxes set to take effect from August 1st. The move, framed by Trump as a step towards balanced and fair trade, imposes duties ranging from 25% up to 50% and includes stern warnings against retaliation. Now, the tariffs are as follows, and on your screen: 50% tariff on Brazil, 30% on imports from Algeria, Iraq, Libya and Sri Lanka, 25% tariff on Brunei, Moldova and the Philippines. Now remember, these tariffs are in addition to existing sectoral tariffs and apply to all goods shipped from the named countries to the United States. Now, any effort to bypass these measures through third-party transshipment will also trigger the full tariff. Now, the move comes on the heels of a batch of letters sent first on July 7th to 14 countries in which Donald Trump warned that failure to finalize trade agreements with the United States by August 1st would trigger steep tariff hikes. Now, among those receiving letters on July 7th were Japan as well as South Korea. Both warned of a levy of 25% tariff on a broad list of goods. Other countries included Indonesia, Bangladesh, Thailand, South Africa and Malaysia, facing duties ranging from 25% to 40%. Now, at a White House meeting with African leaders on Wednesday, Trump insisted the tariffs will fix trade imbalances, help cover tax cuts and bring factory jobs back to America. But most economists warn the move could boost inflation and hurt growth. Now, while Donald Trump said on Wednesday that his administration is imposing a 50% tariff on all imports from Brazil starting August 1st, the president also expressed support for former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. Take a look at this Reuters report.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday said Brazil will be charged with a 50% tariff on products sent to the U.S. starting August 1st. Trump made the comments in a letter to Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, in which he also expressed support for the country's former president, Jair Bolsonaro. Trump has been critical of the BRICS nations, of which Brazil is a key part. Earlier on Wednesday, Trump said Brazil had not treated the U.S. fairly on trade.
The formula was a formula based on common sense, based on deficits, based on how we've been treated over the years. Brazil, as an example, has been not good to us, not good at all.
Trump's letter said the 50% tariff will be separate from all sectoral tariffs. Brazil's real tumbled over 2% against the dollar after news of Trump's letter to Lula. Brazil's government said it would meet to discuss the reaction to Trump's 50% tariff on Brazil following the announcement.
And after US President Donald Trump announced a steep 50% tariff on all Brazilian imports, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva hit back strongly, calling the move unilateral and unacceptable and warning of retaliation under Brazil's economic reciprocity law. On a post on X, Lula said Brazil is a sovereign nation and will not accept any form of tutelage. Meanwhile, all eyes are on India, which is negotiating a trade pact with the United States and has not figured in the list of countries that have been issued tariff letters by the Trump administration on Wednesday so far. Now, the decision will likely provide relief to Indian exporters as both countries are currently engaged in negotiations for a mini trade agreement. The US has issued tariff letters to about 22 countries so far. Remember, on April 2nd, the US imposed an additional 26% reciprocal tariff on Indian goods, but suspended it for 90 days until July 9th. Now, it has been further deferred to August 1st. However, the 10% baseline tariff imposed by America remains in place. Remember, the US is India's largest trading partner from the year 2021-22. During 2024-25 financial year, the bilateral trade in goods stood at $132 billion. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has announced a 50% tariff on all copper imports into the U.S. effective August 1st this year, calling it a crucial step to rebuild what he termed a decimated industry. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said that the decision follows a national security assessment emphasizing that copper is critical to modern defense and tech systems, from semiconductors and ammunition to hypersonic weapons. Trump claimed that copper is now the second most used material by the U.S. Department of Defense and blamed what he called foolish and sleepy past leaders for letting the industry decline, directly criticizing the Biden administration's policies as what he calls stupid and thoughtless. He promised that the steep tariff would usher in a golden age for American copper, positioning the U.S. once again as a dominant producer, and declared the move essential for national security as well as economic strength. And moving to other stories now, in a major boost to digital diplomacy, Namibia will roll out India's UPI, or the Unified Payments Interface System, later this year, following high-level talks between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Namibian President in Windhoek on Wednesday. Now, this marks the first prime ministerial visit from India to Namibia in as many as 27 years, and also the first bilateral state visit hosted by President Nandi Ndaitwah since assuming office in the month of March this year. Both leaders agreed to import new momentum to bilateral ties, focusing on digital technology, defense, maritime security, agriculture, education, energy, healthcare, as well as critical minerals. In a further deepening of ties, the two sides signed two MOUs, one to establish an entrepreneurship development center and another on cooperation in health and medicine. Namibia also joined two major Indian-backed initiatives, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, or CDRI, and the Global Biofuels Alliance. Prime Minister Modi expressed appreciation for Namibia's support in Project Cheetah and also shared India's expertise in using drones in agriculture. Prime Minister Modi was also conferred with Namibia's highest civilian order, the Order of the Most Ancient Mirabilis. The award was presented by Namibian President Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwah.
Speaking of currency, we are thrilled that Namibia is the first country to adopt India's UPI, Unified Payment Interface technology. Soon, people will be able to send money faster than one can say Tangi Unene.
Meanwhile, back home, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has called for a sustainable supply chain for fertilizers, insecticides and pesticides, warning against overdependence on any single country, particularly in light of China's recent export cuts. Speaking at an event on Wednesday, Goyal emphasized that India must protect its agriculture economy from future global disruptions by diversifying sourcing and strengthening domestic production. His remarks come after Beijing sharply restricted exports of phosphatic materials, including diammonium phosphate, or DAP, India's second most used fertilizer after urea. India currently relies heavily on China for these key inputs. The move has triggered a surge in global prices and caused supply concerns, prompting the Indian government to urgently explore alternative sources and boost local production capacity to secure long-term fertilizer availability. And breaking news coming just a few minutes ago, strong earthquake tremors were felt across Delhi NCR, jolting residents awake and prompting immediate concern. While initial reports confirmed tremors, the epicenter and extent of impact are still being determined. Stay tuned as we bring you updates from seismological agencies and eyewitnesses across the city of Delhi as well as the National Capital Region. And just to bring to our viewers what we just felt here in Noida in our studios as well as in other parts of Delhi and the National Capital Region. Strong earthquake tremors were felt across Delhi and NCR. A magnitude of 4.1 has hit Delhi NCR today. Tremors were felt across Delhi and NCR, which has jolted residents and prompted immediate concern. Jeet Bhati is with us, our reporter from TV9 Bharatvarsh. Jeet Bhati, what is the latest that you're picking up? What we heard is a 4.1 magnitude earthquake which has just struck Delhi NCR. What is the epicenter of this quake?
बिल्कुल, देखिए 9:04 का समय था जब जो है पूरे दिल्ली एनसीआर में भूकंप के झटके महसूस किए, जो कि 8 से 10 सेकंड तक ये झटके महसूस किए। अभी जो फिलहाल जानकारी मिल रही है कि इसकी जो तीव्रता थी वो 4.1 मैग्नीट्यूड है और हरियाणा जो है इसका एपिसेंटर हो सकता है। हालांकि अभी डिटेल्स आनी बाकी है, लेकिन जिस तरीके से ये भूकंप के झटके महसूस किए गए हैं तो इसके बाद आफ्टर इफेक्ट्स भी होते हैं, तो ये माना जा रहा है कि इसके बाद भी कुछ और भूकंप के इस तरह के झटके जो के अंदर देखने को मिल सकते हैं। फिलहाल जो उसकी तीव्रता बताई जा रही है वो 4.1 मैग्नीट्यूड की है और एपिक सेंटर को लेकर के अभी सटीक जानकारी आनी बाकी है, लेकिन अभी जो प्राइमरी इंफॉर्मेशन मिल रही है उसके अकॉर्डिंग ये भी हरियाणा का जो है एक इलाका है, वहां पर ये इसका एपिक सेंटर हो सकता है।
तो हरियाणा में अभी कहां पर एपी सेंटर है, कौन से क्षेत्र में एपी सेंटर है, ये जानकारी हमारे पास में अभी नहीं है जीत। लेकिन 4.1 आपके हिसाब से जितना आप सुन रहे हैं सिस्मोलॉजी डिपार्टमेंट में बात करते हुए, 4.1 एक बहुत ही खतरनाक मैग्नीट्यूड तो नहीं है अर्थक्वेक का, बट like you said, there are possibilities of aftershocks. What is the preparedness that you think authorities are taking right now?
बिल्कुल आपने कहा, हमने देखो इससे पहले भी देखे हैं जो 5 मैग्नीट्यूड से नीचे के होते हैं वो ज्यादा उससे कोई खतरा नहीं होता है। और जो ये भी जो है जो वैज्ञानिकों से बात होती है वो बताते हैं कि जो आफ्टर इफेक्ट्स आते हैं वो औसतन हल्के होते हैं, मतलब अगर 4.1 अभी है तो उससे नीचे ही रहा होगा। कभी कभार ऐसा होता है कि उससे हाई मैग्नीट्यूड का जो भूकंप है वो देखने को मिलता है। फिलहाल लेकिन जो 4.1 है ये ज्यादा खतरनाक नहीं माना जा रहा है। और हरियाणा में जो है गुरुवारा एक जगह बताई जा रही है जहां पर इसका एपिक सेंटर अभी रोहतक के आसपास माना जा रहा है। हालांकि अभी डिटेल्स आनी बाकी हैं और तभी पता लग पाएगा कि आखिर जो इसका एपिक सेंटर था वो सटीक कहां पर था।
Okay, so we are still waiting to understand exactly where the epicenter of this earthquake was, but it seems that somewhere near Rohtak seems to be the epicenter. 4.1, what Jeet Bharti is telling us, is not really a concerning number. However, tremors have been felt. From what we are hearing from eyewitnesses and those who have experienced the earthquake lasted at least 7 to 8 seconds, and there are reports that glass windows and glass walls were heard rattling, and the earthquake was felt not just in high rises but even in the first and second floor buildings in the national capital, in fact even near the airport area of New Delhi, including the district of Vasant Vihar. However, what we know for now is that it has been a 4.1 magnitude earthquake. Aftershocks may be expected, but what Jeet Bharti is telling us and his understanding, speaking to the scientific community, that the aftershocks are usually of a lower magnitude. So perhaps at this stage, nothing really to worry about. Jeet Bharti, जुड़े रहिए हमारे साथ में और आपके पास में जो जानकारी मिल रही है अभी लाइव इस समय बताइए हमारे दर्शकों को। What else are you hearing? What else are you picking up? We know that Rohtak or areas around Rohtak could be the epicenter, but no confirmation on that as of now. However, we can confirm to our viewers that Delhi, Gurugram, Noida have all felt the tremors this morning. Jeet Bharti, over to you.
और बिल्कुल देखिए 9 बजे का 4 मिनट का समय था, जैसा हमने बताया कि पूरे दिल्ली एनसीआर में चाहे बात करें आप हरियाणा की बात करें या दिल्ली की बात करें या यूपी का बात करें, पूरे एनसीआर में झटके महसूस किए गए हैं और 8 से 10 सेकंड तक ये झटके पूरे चले हैं। और इसको लेके ये बताया है कि हरियाणा इसका एपिक सेंटर हो सकता है, क्योंकि अभी जो डाटा है वो कलेक्ट किया जा रहा है जो साइंटिस्ट द्वारा, और उसमें सटीक बता पाएंगे कि आखिर एपिक सेंटर कहाँ। लेकिन अभी जो प्राइमरी जानकारी मिली यही है, और हालांकि लोगों में शुरुआत में थोड़ा पैनिक था, लेकिन जब पता लगा कि 4.1 मैग्नीट्यूड है तो अभी थोड़ा सा उस तरीके का पैनिक नहीं देखने को। हालांकि आप पूछा प्रिपेयर्डनेस क्या है, तो ऐसे में कोशिश ये की जाती है कि मतलब जैसे आप दिल्ली मेट्रो की बात करें जो कि लाइफलाइन है पूरा दिल्ली एनसीआर की, तो उसकी भी स्पीड को थोड़ा सा स्लो कर दिया जाता है ताकि अगर ये झटके द्वारा होते हैं तो मेट्रो डिरेल ना हो जाए। तो इस तरह की तैयारी जो है वो की जाती है और हमेशा तैयारी रहती है। फिलहाल अब ये देखना होगा कि जो आफ्टर इफेक्ट्स होंगे क्या वो इससे लो इंटेंसिटी के होंगे या फिर इससे ज्यादा हो सकते हैं, लेकिन जहाँ तक जो अभी तक हम देख रहे हैं औसतन वो लो इंटेंसिटी के ही होते हैं। तो ऐसे में अभी लोगों को घबराने की जरूरत नहीं है। थोड़ी देर में जो काफी इंफॉर्मेशन इसके बारे में मिल जाएगी कि आखिर इसका सेंटर कहाँ था, और अभी जो प्राइमरी है उसके हिसाब से तो 4.1 था, और जो साइंटिस्ट है उसकी तरफ डाटा जैसे जारी किया जाएगा डिपार्टमेंट की तरफ से वो भी हम अपने दर्शकों को बताएंगे। लेकिन फिलहाल जानकारी मिली कि समय 9:04 और जो इसकी तीव्रता थी वो 4.1 मैग्नीट्यूड।
Right, Jeet Bharti, thank you so much for those inputs. So here is what we know so far. An earthquake of 4.1 magnitude has given jolts to the Delhi NCR region, and the earthquake has been felt across at least the 3 cities of Gurugram, Noida and New Delhi. That is what we can confirm. 4.1, not that high on the Richter scale. In Delhi has been at the epicenter of many earthquakes in the past. Not exactly the epicenter, but has been a seismically prone area for earthquakes in the past as well. 4.1, nothing really to worry about. What we could potentially expect could be some aftershocks. But what we are hearing from the scientific community is that aftershocks are usually of a lower magnitude. So at this moment, nothing really to worry about, and there haven't been any alarm bells rung just as yet on any destruction in the city or any panic situation which has been created. So things seem all right as of now. As and when we get more details, we will of course tell you more about the earthquake that has just jolted Delhi and the National Capital Region. Well, time for a short break right now, but something which has also been jolting the world have been Trump's tariffs and the uncertainty around it. It hasn't really caused an earthquake in the markets so far. It seems to be a flat open for the Indian markets again, but we will bring you a perspective from Mohit Gang, who joins us on the show. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
पार्टी हॉर्न्स भी होने चाहिए, मंगा लेती हूँ। स्ट्रॉबेरी भी मंगा लेती हूँ, खाकरा मंगवा लेती हूँ, थेपला भी मंगवाएगी, थेपला भी मंगवा लेती हूँ, छाछ मंगवा लेती हूँ, स्पार्कलिंग कैंडल्स मंगवा लेती हूँ। अलग अलग मत ऑर्डर कर, एक बार में मंगवा। एफर्ट्स और पैसे दोनों बचा। सेविंग्स की विद्या तो कोई तुझसे सीखे। और बता, जब पैसा हो बचाना, फेडरल बैंक से रिश्ता बनाना।
This is the drive of your dreams.
You and I, we are dreamers. You and I, we are believers.
Introducing the all-new Skoda Kailak. Own your dream.
Skoda.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. Let's bring you all the market action, beginning first with the US, where Wall Street closed higher on Wednesday after the Federal Reserve meeting eased concerns that inflation from President Donald Trump's tariffs would derail potential rate cuts this year. The Nasdaq led the gains, with Nvidia briefly touching a $4 trillion valuation. More details in this report.
Wall Street's main indexes closed higher on Wednesday, with the Dow adding roughly 0.5%, the S&P 500 gaining about 0.6%, and the Nasdaq climbing just shy of 1%. The minutes from the Federal Reserve's June meeting showed most central bank officials expect rate cuts later this year, with inflation from President Donald Trump's tariffs expected to be temporary or modest. Meanwhile, Trump on Wednesday issued trade letters to more countries, calling for tariffs of 30% on Algeria, Iraq, and others, and 25% on Brunei and Moldova. The European Union has said it could reach an outline trade agreement with the U.S. in the coming days. Brian Mulberry, client portfolio manager at Zacks Investment Management, said investors will likely remain on edge until more deals are reached.
Tense is the word I would use to describe this market right now. You know, we're slightly positive on the day and on the week, and really it's around when are we going to see some more substantial information from some high volume trading partners. We've got a slew of letters that went out, nothing really impactful. Really all you have to work with is the Japan and South Korea. Those two combined make up roughly 12% of the imported goods volume, and 25% is within the acceptable tolerance. So we're just finding, waiting on bated breath for more news from higher volume trading partners.
Perhaps the biggest market news of the day may have come from Nvidia, which became the world's first company to hit a $4 trillion market value Wednesday morning before giving back some gains. The milestone solidified the AI chip powerhouse's position as one of Wall Street's most favored stocks. Other movers included AES Corp, which rallied nearly 20% after Bloomberg reported that the power provider was exploring a potential sale amid takeover interest from large investment firms. And Boeing shares gained more than 3.5% as Susquehanna raised its price target on the stock after the plane maker reported its June airplane deliveries increased 27% on a yearly basis.
And despite the sharp gains, that we saw in US markets on Wall Street, including on Nasdaq, and the stock of Nvidia touching new highs and valuation briefly touching the $4 trillion mark, the momentum on the Indian market seems to be a little low this morning. Let's pull up the Nifty 50 heat map and see why is it that we are seeing a negative impact of Nasdaq on the Indian IT story. Look at Infosys, which is down about 0.8% in trade. TCS down about half a percentage point or so. The Indian IT story not really reflecting the gains that we saw on Wall Street yesterday. Let's also look at the major indices, the Sensex and the Nifty. Pull up those charts. It seems to be a flattish open for Indian markets this morning, albeit a little bit in the red. Sensex and Nifty both down almost 0.1% or so in trade this morning. Sensex still far away from those 84,000 levels. In fact, barely managing to keep its head above the 83,500. In fact, almost 45 points short of that this morning at about 83,456. Just 10 minutes into market open. Nifty, on the other hand, not able to maintain the 24,500 levels. Well, the small cap and the mid cap space is looking a little better this morning, but volatility, despite all the tariff uncertainty and ambiguity, is fairly low in the markets, well below the 12 figure, now at about 11.85. We have Mohit Gang, co-founder and CEO of Moneyfront, joining us this morning. Mohit, good morning. First up, mood check on the markets. They've been in the flat territory. We haven't really seen too much reaction to what we are hearing, or not hearing rather, on the tariff front. What do you make of the mood of the markets this morning?
Hi, morning Karthik. So look, I think tariff chatter is all around us again, and we are in the midst of a tariff cyclone, I would say. Look, honestly, world doesn't know what is hitting it every morning. But I think the Brazil tariff, 50% tariff on Brazil, is a very symbolic attempt by the Trump administration to kind of derail the BRICS bandwagon. And I think Trump has been very vocal in terms of kind of saying that anyone who joins BRICS or any part of the BRIC will perhaps be tariffed 10% even if they think of joining it, right? So the whole idea of an alternate currency or a BRICS currency coming into shape has actually got dismantled, and it wasn't the case ever to be, though. Right. The only positive which I can take from this is that India is still not on the charts, which means that we are very close to inking a deal with the US and also perhaps with the European Union. And market, I think, Karthik, for last 1 odd week is just in a hold and pause mode because it's anticipating something to come out of the tariff announcements, and no one is very clear as to which direction will that deal flow to. And that's the reason why I think market is just hovering in a particular range for some time now.
Right, so markets range bound primarily on uncertainty, not knowing which direction to move given the ambiguity all around us. But Mohit, that doesn't seem to be the story with IT stocks. And again, we are seeing this divergence where we saw Nasdaq and companies, AI-driven companies, especially those critical to the AI story like Nvidia, touching new highs yesterday. But the Indian IT pack seems not to be in a good mood this morning. And this is despite TCS results expected later today. I understand that stock may be in some sort of a consolidation mode ahead of the results, but beyond TCS, also the entire IT pack seems to be in the red territory this morning, and services sector per se thus far not in the ambit of ambiguity surrounding the entire tariff story, which is more linked to the manufacturing side, the goods side, and not the services side. What is keeping IT stocks under pressure for a very long time now?
Yeah. So Karthik, look, I think I've been pretty much very clear on my stand on the IT as a pack that we need to stay away from the pack for some time now, till such time that we have clarity A on their earnings and revenue visibility, and B on the interest rate cycle both in US and India, and more so in US. Look, in US, it looks likely the way the yields have eased off yesterday night, and some commentary is coming out from the Fed. The entire Fed is kind of divided on the call to be taken on the rate cut. So if the rate cut cycle kicks off in US, then I think that's a little positive for the IT pack out there in US. Also, the second thing which we are noticing is the divergence between the services and the products company in the IT pack. And I think AI driven companies which are more product oriented, like the one like Nvidia and all, they are hitting new marks every day. However, the Indian IT pack is mostly service oriented, and that's where I think AI is likely to impact it negatively, and which is what is taking a big toll. And the second reason which I foresee is the upcoming result season. I don't think so the TCS result today is going to augur any amount of confidence in the investors and the whole pack per se. TCS and Infosys both are the bellwether stocks, and I don't think so both will show any kind of uptick in the investor expectations. In fact, downward surprises are more likely in the earnings this time around from the IT pack as a whole. So my sense is IT pack will remain soft for some time, Karthik, and I think one should do good to stay away from it.
All right, stay away from the IT pack seems to be the view coming in this morning from Mohit Gang. Mohit, another certainty that we know in this environment of ambiguity is the fact that copper tariffs of 50% are now going to come in, and 1st August has been set as the deadline for those tariffs to take effect. What we are seeing on the charts this morning is that the steel companies are actually rising this morning. Look at Tata Steel, that's up almost 1%. Jindal Steel is up about 0.7% or so, but copper, Vedanta being one of the players, down about 0.2% or so. This overall metal pack and the non-energy sector, how do you see that now reacting to the existing tariffs on steel and aluminium, and no clarity on whether they will stay, whether they will be rolled into the nationwide tariffs, or will they continue to be separate tariffs altogether, and this fresh wave of tariffs which is hitting the copper sector?
Yeah. So look, I think the copper tariffs are now there out in the open, and we are not yet clear on the other pack as to which way they are headed. But maybe there are 2 or 3 ways of interpreting this entire thing. I think the one way interpretation is that now that it is kind of hit copper, the other metals are left aside with whatever was the tariff previously, and there is no further action on those other metals. And maybe that's the reason the other metals are seeing a little bit of a bump up out there. And look, but I think the metals as a pack remains a hugely volatile pack, not just driven by the tariff announcement, but also driven largely by the global demand and supply scenario. So It's a very tricky pack to call out for. We remain mildly bullish on the pack per se, but it is very difficult to call out if there are further tariffs being announced on other metals. Then I think it can become a little tricky zone out there.
All right, and talk to me about the pharma stocks. Yesterday, in a surprise move, despite the news coming late night between Monday and Tuesday about the 200% tariff on pharmaceuticals. Yesterday, in a surprise move, we saw pharma stocks actually inching up, breaking their losing streak of the previous day. But today, we are seeing massive cuts in the pharma space. Cipla is down about 0.9%. Davis Lab is down about almost 1% down. Sun Pharma, Dr. Reddy's, all these stocks under tremendous pressure this morning. Yesterday we saw all these stocks in the green, and this morning we are seeing massive cuts. Why this sudden newfound fear on tariffs or otherwise?
I am really not sure whether it's the tariff saga playing out on the pharma stocks. I honestly think it's more like a normal profit booking round. The valuations have been pretty high on most of the pharma names, and I think it's par for the course what we are seeing in the market. Not anything to be linked to the tariffs or otherwise. Because look, honestly, I think though the tariff announcements have come on the pharma, the pack, if were to react to the tariff announcement, would be reacting much sharply and much before the announcements were to come, in just the anticipation and even now post the announcements. But we haven't seen that kind of movement in pharma stocks. In fact, for all said and done, the pharma stocks have been pretty much resilient for all this while. So yes, and I also think in the that tariff announcement on pharmas, I'm not sure whether it's truly sustainable for a pretty long period of time, considering the US economy and its reliance on pharma outsourcing. So my sense is we will see some softening out there, and perhaps market also in a sense anticipates that, and that's why they're not going all hog on trimming down the positions on the pharma sector per se.
All right, and Mohit, if I can request you now to wear your personal finance hat and just tell the retail investors out there listening to you with great intent, really seeing the fluctuations on their dashboards of their investments. What should retail investors at this point do? What should their strategy be at a time of volatility and uncertainty like the kind we are seeing?
Look, I think this is a brilliant consolidation phase which is happening in the market right now. Honestly, if you just go by the Indian macros and the atmosphere all around, right, you have a GDP growth which is likely to come in at around 6.5. You have an interest rate cycle which is sloping downward extremely fast and neatly. Your interest rates are coming down in the economy. Your inflation is very well in control, right? The private sector capex is showing some signs of green shoots. The monsoon is likely to be normal, right? So from GST collections are great, right? From an Indian perspective, I think the macros are looking fantastic. Unless a geopolitical event again comes and dampens the spirit. My sense is we're just waiting for A, the trade deal to kind of pass through, and B, some kind of positive news flow, some uptick coming in from the result season. If that were to come through, then I think the markets will perhaps give us a new leg up. Having said which, the result season is looking like a little dampener, but once the base effect is set, perhaps market will start looking forward and start discounting the next quarter from there on. And I think that is what is looking extremely positive to me. So my sense is it's a consolidation phase. Investors should be just patient, try and take small dips in the market, build your positions and wait for the next cycle to come.
All right, Mohit gang, vital input coming in this morning for all the retail investors. Thank you so much for your time and a pleasure as always having you here on News 9.
My pleasure, Karthik. Thanks.
And moving on to other corporate stories that we're tracking for you this morning. American short seller Viceroy Research has turned its spotlight on India's Vedanta group just today before Chairman Anil Agarwal is set to face shareholders at Vedanta Limited's annual shareholder meeting. In the report, Viceroy has accused Vedanta of financial misconduct, misleading investors, inflating asset values and raising off-balance sheet loans, claims that the group has strongly denied, calling the report malicious and misleading. The report's timing, Vedanta said, appears intended to derail upcoming corporate initiatives, including its plan to demerge into 5 separate companies. On Wednesday, Vedanta Limited shares fell 3.38%, while Hindustan Zinc dropped 2.56%. Even this morning, we are seeing the shares under pressure. Vedanta Limited down about 0.2%, trading at about 440 odd levels in trade this morning. Now, Viceroy co-founder Fraser Perring hinted that is only the beginning, saying there is more to come. Perring confirmed his firm holds a short position on Vedanta Resources bonds, but no exposure to its listed shares. The saga draws comparisons to the Hindenburg Adani report, which caused massive market turmoil last year. But Vedanta stock with just a 0.2% cut in trade this morning, not really seeing a massive reaction from investors just as yet. And to a global corporate story making headlines since late yesterday, chipmaker Nvidia has become the world's first publicly listed company to hit a $4 trillion market capitalization, overtaking both Apple and Microsoft to become the largest listed company by value. More details in this next report.
Nvidia on Wednesday became the first company to reach a market value of $4 trillion, cementing its status as a Wall Street heavyweight amid a surging AI trade. Shares of the leading chip designer rose as much as 2.5% to an all-time high of $164 a share. Co-founded in 1993 by CEO Jensen Huang, Nvidia has evolved from a niche company popular among video game enthusiasts into Wall Street's barometer for the AI industry, with the company's high-performance chips forming the backbone of this technological advance. Dan Ives is managing director of Wedbush Securities.
This is a historical day for Nvidia, as the godfather of AI, Jensen, in terms of showing there's one chip in the world fueling the AI revolution, that's Nvidia. $4 trillion, I think it's just a start. I think Microsoft's also going to join $4 trillion market cap club. And it's a tech bull market we expect the next few years, but it's all being led in the AI revolution by Nvidia.
The stock's recent rally follows a sluggish start to the year when the emergence of a Chinese discount AI model developed by DeepSeek shook confidence in stocks linked to the sector. Nvidia has rebounded about 74% from its lows in April when global markets were jolted by U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff policy. The company is now worth more than the combined value of the Canadian and Mexican stock markets, according to LSEG data, and exceeds the total value of all publicly listed companies in the UK. Nvidia for the second quarter expects revenue of about $45 billion. It will report second quarter results on August 27th.
And it's not just Nvidia which is surging to all-time highs. Even Bitcoin has surged to its own all-time high on Wednesday afternoon, hitting the $1,12,052 mark during stock market close, lifted by a broader rally led by tech giant Nvidia. The flagship cryptocurrency broke past its previous May 2022 record despite weeks of range-bound trading. Analysts note that Bitcoin purchases by public companies outpaced ETF inflows last quarter, even as monthly gains remain modest at just 2%. Elon Musk's Starlink has officially cleared the final regulatory hurdle to launch satellite-based internet services here in India. The IN-SPACE, or the India National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, has granted Starlink authorization to operate its first-generation satellite constellation over Indian skies, valid for 5 years until July 7, 2030. The approval comes after thorough checks and procedural clearances, according to officials. With this, Starlink joins Eutelsat, OneWeb and GeoSES joint venture in receiving the green light to provide satellite broadband in India. Starlink has deployed over 4,000 Gen 1 satellites globally out of a total fleet of nearly 6,750, this according to the New Space Index. Meanwhile, Luxembourg-based SES, Geo's partner, has secured permission to operate 24 satellites over India. India's space regulator IN-SPACE, which governs private space activity, is also evaluating Amazon's Kuiper, which awaits approval. And Dubai-based Riyadh Group has issued a public apology and taken full responsibility for spreading what it now admits was incorrect information regarding the UAE's golden visa rules. The apology comes after reports earlier this week quoting the group claimed that the UAE government was offering lifetime golden visas for a one-time payment of 23.3 lakh rupees. These claims triggered massive public interest as well as some confusion. On Wednesday, the UAE's Federal Authority for Identity, Citizenship, Customs and Port Security, called the ICP, officially dismissed those reports, stating that no such fixed price or guaranteed golden visa scheme exists. In a detailed statement, Riyadh Group said, "We apologize unreservedly for the confusion caused and take full responsibility for ensuring future communications are accurate and aligned with UAE regulations." The group also acknowledged that misplaced comments by its managing director contributed to the public misunderstanding. Riyadh clarified that those statements did not reflect the company's actual role or authority in relation to the Golden Visa program. The group also emphasized that there is no guaranteed visa, no lifetime UAE residency product, and no fixed price program currently in place. In light of the controversy, Riyadh Group has announced it is discontinuing its private advisory services related to the Golden Visa. And before we slip into another break, let's look at all the other global stories that we are following for you this morning. US President Donald Trump announces sweeping 50% tariff on all Brazilian imports starting August 1st, cites the need to restore balance in bilateral trade. Brazil's President Lula da Silva warns of reciprocal action, says his country will not accept being dictated by anyone. Trump sends a fresh round of tariff warning letters to another 8 countries, including Algeria, Iraq, Libya, Sri Lanka and the Philippines as part of his escalating trade campaign. Trump also confirms 50% tariff on all imported copper will take effect August 1st, calls the measure vital to rebuilding what he calls a decimated industry. Meanwhile, the European Commission says it's close to finalizing a trade deal with the United States following Washington's move to push back the tariff deadline from July 9th to August 1st. Malaysia's trade minister says the country won't respond to Trump's 25% tariff with countermeasures, expresses optimism that a deal can still be reached in the coming weeks. US markets close higher as Fed signals rate cut despite inflation risks from Trump's tariff, with the Nasdaq leading and Nvidia briefly hitting a record of $4 trillion in market capitalization. Bitcoin surges to a new all-time high of $112,052 apiece during Wednesday's market close, driven by Nvidia's massive valuation rally. Linda Yaccarino announces resignation as CEO of Elon Musk's social media platform X, marking a major leadership shakeup at the social media company. And finally, Kenyan President William Ruto faces backlash after suggesting police shoot protesters in the leg to stop vandalism, days after deadly unrest killed 31 people nationwide. These stories on the other side of the break. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
एक तेरे लिए मंगाओ? मेरे नए म्यूजिक गॉगल्स मंगाओ क्या?
ये नई गाड़ी कप होल्डर है, कुकी भी रख सकते हैं, म्यूजिक भी।
सेविंग्स की विद्या तो कोई तुझसे सीखे।
कुछ बड़ा बनाना है तो पहले बचाओ, फेडरल बैंक से रिश्ता बनाओ।
Hi, this is Baman Irani.
Hi, this is Karishma Tanna.
Hi, I'm Nushat Bharucha.
Catch this conversation on News 9.
Catch this conversation on News 9. Catch me and this conversation on News 9.
Hi, this is Shahid Kapoor and catch this conversation on News 9.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. Let's bring you the other global stories that we're tracking for you. The European Commission says it has made strong progress towards a framework trade deal with the United States. EU Trade Chief Marko Sefcovic told lawmakers on Wednesday that an agreement could be reached in the coming days, helped by Washington's decision to extend its tariff deadline from July 9th to August 1st.
The discussions are constructive. We have engaged on key elements such as tariffs, non-tariff barriers, economic security, strategic purchases, mutual investment, etc. We have made good progress on the text of the joint statement or agreement in principle, and I hope we can soon finalize our work. Crucially, while other nations faced increased tariffs from the United States as a result of the letters that President Trump sent out on Monday, our negotiations have spared the EU from facing higher tariffs. But let me be clear, while we remain committed to achieving a satisfactory deal, we need to acknowledge a certain degree of rebalancing will remain. These come from differing perspectives and starting points. The US sees the trading relationship with the EU as unbalanced due to the US deficit on goods. Surely our perceptions and viewpoints differ, but we remain committed to our goal, which is to restore predictability, providing businesses, workers and consumers the relief they seek and deserve against unwanted and damaging escalation.
And staying with trade deals and potential tariffs, Malaysia's Trade Minister Tengku Zafrul Aziz said on Wednesday the country has no plans to retaliate against the 25% tariff imposed by the United States. Now speaking at the Reuters Next Asia Summit, he said Malaysia remains optimistic about securing a deal and still has a few weeks to finalize terms with Washington. Listen in.
I'm still optimistic. I've looked at this announcement as an opportunity for us to continue our negotiations till the 1st of August. I'm in touch with USTR as recent as yesterday, and we all agreed that we could continue our negotiations. So we still have time. There are challenges, of course. There are issues that we still need to resolve, but many of those issues have been resolved. We are appreciative that the timeline has been extended to 1st of August. It gives us a bit more time to refine some of the discussion of some of, not the offers, but some of the issues that need to be resolved, because it involves many ministries within our government and agencies as well. So we need to coordinate that, and it will take time to do so.
And moving from the tariff shake-up to a corporate shake-up, Linda Yaccarino has announced her resignation as CEO of Elon Musk-owned X just months after the platform was bought under the umbrella of Musk's AI startup, XAI. The unexpected move marks another major shake-up at the social media company. Take a look.
We need to raise the standards across the entire internet ecosystem.
Linda Yaccarino, the CEO of X, announced on Wednesday that she is stepping down from the social media company that is owned by billionaire Elon Musk. She made the announcement in a post on X suggesting it was her decision and said, quote, "I'm incredibly proud of the X team. The historic business turnaround we have accomplished together has been nothing short of remarkable." She did not give any specific reason for her decision to leave the company. Musk thanked Yaccarino for her contributions in a reply post. Her departure comes at a turbulent time in Musk's sprawling business empire, including falling sales at his EV maker Tesla and AI-related controversies. Daniel Ives, managing director of Wedbush Securities, says the move by Yaccarino to step down is a step back for the company.
Look, Linda is a key part of the foundation of X. You know, her leaving, it's definitely, I believe, a step back for X and a worry for the platform. There's a lot of challenges ahead. And she was really thought to be a leader for the coming years. Her leaving is a surprise.
Yaccarino took the top job back in 2023 to help Musk transform the company after he bought it in a $44 billion deal. Here's Yaccarino talking about the platform at Vox Media's Code conference that year.
The foundation of X is based on free expression and freedom of speech. Everyone deserves to have that opportunity to speak their opinion, no matter who they are.
Currently, X is dealing with a heavy debt load, and Yaccarino has had to often deal with controversies stirred up by Musk, including his endorsement of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories in late 2023. Her resignation from X comes just a day after Grok, the AI chatbot developed by Musk's startup XAI, posted content referencing Adolf Hitler on the platform. The posts were later deleted following a public backlash, and Yaccarino wrote she was working to restore advertiser confidence and prioritize safety on X. Neither X nor Yaccarino said who will take her place, and it was unclear when her resignation would take effect.
And moving to Africa now, Kenyan President William Ruto drew sharp criticism on Wednesday after saying that police should shoot protesters in the leg to incapacitate them if they vandalize or torch businesses. His comments come just days after 31 people were killed in nationwide demonstrations sparked by police brutality, economic hardship and the death of a political blogger in custody. Protesters accused the government of excessive force and corruption. Luxury German automaker Porsche reported a first-half sales decline on Tuesday, citing stiff competition and slowing demand in China, where sales fell by as much as 28%. The company blamed challenging market conditions and intense competition for the slowdown. Take a look.
German luxury sports car maker Porsche said on Tuesday its sales fell in the first half of the year. It blamed challenging market conditions and intense competition for a 28% slump in the Chinese market. Sales at the car maker fell 6% globally, and it delivered more than 146,000 vehicles worldwide. North America proved to be a bright spot as sales grew by a tenth. Porsche's deliveries of electric vehicles also went up over 14% in the first half from a year earlier. The car maker said 36% of the vehicles delivered were electrified. Uncertain times continue for global car makers. On Monday, Mercedes-Benz said its second quarter unit sales of cars and vans fell 9%. The German giant blamed the impact of tariffs.
And finally, Mattel unveiled its first ever Barbie doll with type 1 diabetes on Wednesday, aiming to raise awareness and promote inclusivity. The Barbie comes with diabetes-related accessories including a glucose monitor, insulin patch and pump. Also released was a one-of-a-kind Barbie modeled after British fashion model Leela Moss, who lives with type 1 diabetes. The launch builds on Mattel's broader efforts towards representation following earlier dolls with Down syndrome and visual impairments. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Morning Brief at 9. News continues right here on News 9. Thank you so much for watching, but do stay tuned.
A deep dive into what matters to you the most. Angles you won't find anywhere else. News that impacts your life.